Good morning, everyone. Want to welcome everyone to our special council session of Wednesday, August 28th, 2024. Welcome to council and staff and anyone else that may be viewing. I'll call the meeting to order. We acknowledge that we're Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Council would have a copy of the agenda that's been circulated. I'd ask for a motion to approve the agenda as presented, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Gilroy, seconded by Councillor Gould. All those in favor say, raise your hand, please. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. That brings down to number 3, the organizational policy bylaw items. 3.1, first reading of bylaw to amend the land use bylaw 24-12 and Shaw Rural Housing Development Agreement to rezone multiple PIDs within the bounds of Mechanic Street, Elm Street, and Carter Street in Spring Hill. Mr. Boone, please.
Thank you, Worship. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. I have the presentations there, so just bear with me while technology catches up. Sorry, Your Worship, just bear with me.
Sure thing. Thank you.
All right, hopefully technology caught up.
It is.
Awesome. Thank you. Good morning again. This first item on the agenda with Shaw Rural Housing for Spring Hill. This is an item that council has been aware of for some time, but this is the first official step in the process for the development agreement and rezoning of some additional property. So I'm just going to move to the next slide here. I'm going to start it from the beginning. Here we go. Sorry. Here we go. So for members of council, this may be the first time seeing the overall comprehensive plan other than what's in your package, but first time public presenting this. The project involves a multiple number of buildings and multiple number of units on the property. This has been a combination, and I'll show you in a later slide, of a number of parcels that Shaw has been stitching together as a complete overall development. If you can see my cursor on the screen, access points would be from 2 locations, one from Mechanic Street and the other from Crossan Street. And these would be internal roads to the development, which would be more or less access roads that are internal and would be held as private. Within this development, there will be dedicated green space. Again, this will be private green space, but these areas you can see kind of central to the community development within the project. And pedestrian connections will lead from this green space back out to Mechanic, and then a secondary access point, which will go down the extended right away to Robertson Avenue. So reason with those 2 main pedestrian connections is to ensure quick access to the downtown, because folks would not necessarily walk up Mechanic and down Crossan or reverse to access the downtown. So we have required this pedestrian point of access to the end of the existing Robertson Avenue, and then the connection back to Mechanic because of the proximity to the park, splash pad park, and also access and walkability to the new school. This property has multiple PIDs. You'll see on the attachment to the report. Community obviously located in Spring Hill, kind of sandwiched in between Mechanic, Crossan Street, and this being Elm. Lower density residential on some of the property, but as you may recall, Your Worship and members of council, this parcel here is the one that the municipality put through an open RFP process that Shaw did purchase from us, and that purchase agreement was completed back in July. This parcel of land we did proactively before putting it out to the RFP process, did rezone this multiple residential. So schedule of events here and how we would process this. the development is to rezone the PIDs that do not have the multi-residential zoning on it. So the outline blue is the one just short of that, this line right here. This area has been rezoned, but the remaining parcels would require the rezoning. So we're going to rezone the PIDs as per the report, and we're going to adopt a development agreement, which again is part of your package in detail. We would consolidate parcels start, which would be phase 1 and 3, which is here, the yellow, and phase 3 is contiguous right here. Phase 1 of construction would happen. They're planning on coming off of Crossan Street to start. And then we would register an easement through the property. There's a current sewer boundary, sewer line that runs through here, and we would be looking at establishing a right-of-way as part of the development agreement. And then phase 2 and 3 of construction would progress. No specific timelines other than construction of phase 1 would look potentially starting here late in 2024. And from there, we would get a schedule from the developer as they commence. We would have a development agreement which has a timeline for start to completion, but we haven't put specific requirements on when the phases would occur. At the end, they would consolidate all of these parcels that you see on the screen into one consolidated PID, because this will be held as one ownership. So I'm not going to take a bunch of time on the kind of concepts that were in the package. However, these are a number of different buildings with a number of different floor plans and the ability to have multiple units in them. These designs, I've seen a few designs, and we could get some additional pictures, but these designs would allow to create multiple residential units within each building. So they're not individual homes, they're multiple development opportunities. So the first one was a duplex. You can see this is a particular 3-unit dwelling. Smaller spaces allow to keep obviously rent down, and they're trying to make this an affordable, overall affordable project. So again, up to from 2 and 3-unit buildings up to the smaller, what they call micro units, which would be 4 in a particular dwelling or construction of a structure. Each one all independently with facilities, bathrooms, kitchens, and some of them with separate washrooms, separate sleeping areas and bedrooms in addition to private washrooms. So some key requirements for the development agreement, which is part of your package once again. Property owners will be required to obtain building permits and development permits for each phase of the development. Property owners are required to work with municipal public works staff to coordinate service connections, and all levels of those approvals would go through our Director of Public Works. They have been working, both our director and our assistant engineer have been working with Shaw on connections for sewer, water, and storm. Developers are required to work with municipal staff to make sure stormwater management measures are being taken. So as a part of the overall servicing program. Property owners again are required to provide pedestrian pathways that I mentioned earlier on the site plan within the interior laneways of the project. So connecting the dwelling parking areas to both Robertson and Mechanic Street. So, Your Worship, financial considerations, none specific to the proposal. Developers responsible for construction of all services and the internal road network. No specific environmental requirements, other than the developer is responsible for the installation of all services, and that would go through the normal process, including stormwater management plan. Community engagement. Upon first reading, which is today in the conversation, we would look at a public hearing to be scheduled potentially September 18th, but that will be at the pleasure of council. Notification of the scheduled public hearing would be provided 2 weeks prior, utilizing our municipal website, and that is the new requirement under the Municipal Government Act. So, recommendation before you today, Your Worship, is that council approve first reading of the bylaw to amend the land use bylaw 24-12 and approve first reading of the development agreement. And again, as mentioned, would be to schedule a public hearing. So, happy to stop sharing screen here for a sec and answer any potential questions.
Thank you, sir, for that, Mr. Moon. So I'm going to read the recommended motion, which includes about about 15 PIDs. I think I'm correct there, Glenn. And I'm not going to read off all those PID numbers, but the recommended motion is that council approve first reading of the bylaw to amend the land use bylaw 24-12 to rezone the following parcels from lower density residential zone to multi-unit residential zone. And there are 15 PIDs listed there, and they'll be in the package and they'll be available publicly. And to approve first reading of the Shaw Rural Housing Development Agreement Spring Hill and to schedule a public hearing for the proposed amendment and development agreement. So someone would like to make that motion, please. Moved by Councillor Joseph, seconded by Councillor Porter. So questions, comments from Mr. Boone in regards to this agenda item? So just while councillor is thinking about it, Glenn, I do have a couple. So when I look at your drawings, it appears like there's, so the parking lot for the Robert Street apartments, is there a public right of way through there? Is that not privately owned? Is there something owned by the municipality that gives a right of way through there?
Yes, Your Worship, I can answer the question. So where the existing apartment building is on Robertson Avenue now, there is a road reserve below that PID that's owned by KC Realty. So there is a section of land there that would have been held for a future road. So potentially an expansion of Robertson Avenue could be extended in the future if it was required. So what we're asking the developer to do in this case is create a pedestrian connection down that 50-foot reserve that's there for a future road. So connect to the end of existing Robertson Avenue, but there is a right-of-way reserve there as per the plans that were and per what we have transferred and sold to Shaw. So we only sold the parcel, but not that portion of the right-of-way.
Thank you. So does that mean that there'd be a pedestrian right-of-way versus a vehicular right-of-way through there after this?
Correct. Yes, we're requiring Shaw to create that pedestrian connection to the end of the existing Robertson Avenue roadway.
Thank you. And the second question I had was, on your diagrams, you showed the sewer going from Mechanic Street down through this land to Elm Street. Is that vacant land through there, or is that owned? Do we own that land? Or
so, yeah, two components to that, Your Worship. Shaw has bought privately from the Cards, who own that parcel of land that had the sewer easement going through it. So we're going to reestablish a proper easement right away through the land that's now controlled and owned by Shaw. And there is a parcel of land that the municipality owns to the right, if you're looking at Elm Street Inn, to the right of the lands that are still currently owned by the Cards. That's where their home is. So that portion of land is where the sewer goes through now. So that is municipally owned land on that section now.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir. So any, now that we've had discussion on that far, any questions or comments from any councillors in regards to this agenda item? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor, raise your hand, please. Counterminded? Seeing none, motion is carried. Thank you, sir. 3.2, first reading of bylaw to amend the land use bylaw 24-13 to rezone a portion of PIDs 250-72455 and 253-59803. Mr. Boone, please.
Thank you, Worship. You still hearing me okay?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Again, a first reading application as per your package, and this property is zoned, currently zoned general commercial. This is Burns Drive. It comes off McDonald Road, as you can see on the plan in the screen in front of you. Entirety of this property is currently, there's a number of PIDs here that are currently owned by the same owner. Parsons Investments in the process of acquiring these lands. We do have a letter on file from the owners saying they support the rezoning. The lands that we're currently looking at is this kind of odd-shaped PID and the second PID here that you see on the screen. So as you can see, all of the lands in here are currently zoned highway commercial, including the parcel that we're looking to portion of this PID, and this parcel here, separate PID, we're looking to rezone to general commercial. So highway commercial probably allows a few more developments that you wouldn't normally see in general commercial, but it does not permit offices or medical offices particularly. So rezoning is required in order to fit the land use that's being proposed into the development proposed. So this is just concept start, your worship, but this is the concept that's been drawn for this facility. It looks like this facility will actually be built in a number of other communities, including the Municipality of Cumberland. So again, this is concept now. It's a collaborative practice, so multiple doctors and support medical and support for services, within the facility. So again, this is concept at this time, but this is along the lines of what the proposal would look like. To give you an idea, the area is a public road. It is maintained by Nova Scotia Public Works, but at this point, it's undeveloped land. Roads well maintained, but for a gravel surface, and power and communications do run to the frontage of this property, as you can see on the center photo there. A couple of things that have to happen here. One is the rezoning, but the second part that's in the bylaw as proposed is adding medical offices to the general commercial zone. This is just really, your worship and members of council, just really for clarity in the bylaw. We've always had the provision of offices, but we do have medical offices specifically noted in zones within our bylaw. So we really thought this is just really a housekeeping amendment, specifically note medical offices. So it's a good time when we're doing the rezoning to specifically put that use and definition into the land use bylaw. So financial implications at this point, your worship, non-specific to the proposal. The developer, from an environmental perspective, would be subject to an on-site sewage disposal system design and approved from the Department of Environment. Site meets eligibility requirements for that. And the applicant is working with the Amherst Water Utility to extend central water. I can tell you that water does exist, and the shutoffs and connections are at the intersection of Burns and the McDonald Road. So from a community engagement perspective, this is a rezoning. So council, upon first reading, we would set up a public hearing to be held at a later date. A notification of public hearing will be provided as per our normal process now. So 2 weeks prior to the public hearing, we put it on the municipal website, and working with our communication officer, your worship, we've also been putting these public hearings on our social media as well, just to give some more, guidance and more notice to the public and how we're going forward. So the recommendations before you, your worship. So without me reading it, I know you will, but there's two components to this. One is the rezoning of a portion of the PID as per the plan or the map I shown, and the second is the other PID being rezoned in its entirety. And the second component would be adding medical offices as a permitted use as of right in the general commercial zone. So happy to stop sharing screen and answer any potential questions.
Thank you, sir. So the recommended motion is that council approve first reading of the bylaw to amend the land use bylaw 24-13 to rezone a portion of PID 25072455 and PID 253-59803 from highway commercial to general commercial, and add medical offices as a permitted use of as of right in the general commercial zone, and to schedule a public hearing on the above matter. If someone would like to make that motion, please. Moved by Councilor Telling, second by Councilor Gould. Any questions or comments for Mr. Boone regards to this agenda item? Being none, Glenn, is this similar to what we just did in Pugwash in regards to allowing for health-related medical use offices in that zone near the hospital?
A little different, your worship. What we did was we redefined personal service shops to expand what was within personal service shops. This is actually just defining medical offices, which would be specific. You'd have to have medical practitioners, whether doctors, naturopaths, physiotherapists. And in this case, this facility will probably have some social work support within it as well.
Very good. Thank you.
So, a private developer, but this would be a provincial leased facility.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from Mr. Boone regards to this agenda item? Seeing none, I'm going to call for the question. All those in favor, raise your hand, please. Can't remind it. Raise your hand. Seeing none, motion is carried. Thank you, sir. 3.3, second reading of the bylaw to amend the MBS 24-08 and bylaw to amend the land use bylaw 24-09 to redesignate and rezone a portion of PID 2504414 24 West Amherst. Mr. Boone.
Your worship, do you still have me connected there?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, share screen is doing a little connection issue here. I'm in the main office in Spring Hill. I'm not quite sure what's happening.
Yeah, I think you're frozen there, but we can hear you very well.
Okay, I'm gonna just disconnect and reconnect, I think, Peter, because it's I'm getting the, as I call it, the circle, time circle here. All right, just bear with me, your
Okay.
worship.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me those slides if.
Hello again. I want to make sure we're connected. Everything's good.
You are, Glenn, yes.
Thank you. Apologies for that. I'm not sure what happened with technology, but
Hmm.
you will. All right. Hopefully we're back, as they say, cooking with gas.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. All right. Third application that's before you today, your worship and members of council. This is actually a project or file you have seen twice before. So first reading and public hearing was held recently on this application. So this is to complete the process within our mandated requirements under the Municipal Government Act. And so this is the parcel of land that we've been looking at over in West Amherst. In particular, the property that is a large parcel. This is really just dealing with a portion of the main PID. And the idea behind this is to look at two components. One is an MPS amendment because currently this area is zoned commercial, is designated commercial, but it's zoned urban industrial. And for this particular project or development, the owner of the land simply wants to look to subdivide off a lot for residential use. And in order to do that, the current zoning did not permit that. So what we're looking at doing is a commercial redesignation from the commercial to the resource designation, and then the current zone urban industrial would go to commercial recreation, which would permit the development of the housing. Your worship, this is an area on the Fenton Road. It's the DOT maintained road, well maintained for a gravel surface, but at this point, not a lot of development further in on the Fenton Road. The residential properties are basically at the start of the Fenton Road at the corner with Southampton Road, and one property just as you enter the Fenton Road. So again, very appropriate changes to the designation, kind of aligning with where we feel the zoning and the designation should be. Long term, as I mentioned at the public hearing, we would look to make changes to the overall zoning in this area because the urban industrial is not likely the most appropriate zoning for this landowner, and we'll work with them as part of the housekeeping amendments and eventually the plan review to make those changes. So there's no financial considerations here, no environmental implications that are specific to the matter. As I mentioned in the public hearing, the design of the on-site sewage disposal system under environmental requirements would be standard part of them getting a building and development permit for the site. Community engagement. So we have followed the requirements under the Municipal Government Act. Notice for an open house was published on the county website July 4th, and we did an additional advertisement on July 10th. So there was two components of community engagement here, your worship and members of council. Because we were changing MPS, which is policy, the redesignation from the commercial to the resource designation, that required us to have an open house. So that was duly advertised, held on July 18th. There was no comments received either in writing or at the open house specific to this project. The first reading was then held on July 24th, as per the normal process. And then the notice of public hearing was published to the county website and advertised again 1 week in advance. So of the public hearing. The public hearing, as I mentioned earlier, was just held recently, so last week. No representatives from the public, and we had no written submissions on this application. But at this point, Your Worship, the recommendation is before you, and this will allow us to move this application forward. The applicant's been very patient on this, as I mentioned, the public hearing, and the additional steps because of a municipal planning strategy amendment and change to the designation does take a little bit more time, but also we will have to send the MPS amendment to the director of planning for the province and potentially signed off by the director, or if they require it, to the minister for the department. Happy to answer any particular questions, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Boone. So the recommended motion is that council approve second reading of the bylaw to amend the municipal planning strategy 24-08 to redesignate a portion of PID 250-44124 from commercial to resource, and approve second reading of the bylaw to amend the land use bylaw 24-09 to rezone a portion of PID 250-44124 from urban industrial zone to commercial recreation zone. If someone would like to make that motion, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Gilroy and seconded by Councillor Gould. Questions or comments for Mr. Boone? Seeing none, call for the question. All those in favor, raise your hand, please. Those opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, sir. 3.4, amendment to the water leak adjustment policy 23-05. Ms. Hurdle, Director of Finance.
Thank you, Your Worship. We are bringing some amendments forward on this policy. As you'll recall, we passed this policy, or the council passed this policy in December 20th, 2023. It was a policy to allow a one-time reprieve for water customers who have a high bill due to a leak that they have subsequently repaired. In implementing that policy, we discovered that the scope was limited in a way that we believe may have been unintentional. And so we are recommending a couple of amendments. The main amendment is to open it up for residential properties that are not owner occupied. So if somebody has a rental property and doesn't live there, and there's a leak that they subsequently get repaired, the policy would now apply to those situations. There have been a couple that have come forward that this would apply to if these amendments were made. So the policy is attached with track changes. You can see pretty minimal changes under application. We just take out the residential properties, take out that are owner occupied, and under definitions, take out where it says who occupies the property. And then as we were reviewing the policy to make those amendments, we noticed a couple things since we've implemented the policy in our process that we wanted to change at the same time. So instead of the form going to the Director of Public Works, it's actually coming to me. So we just changed that to Director of Finance. And initially we had a clause that said the municipality must confirm that the leak has been repaired by reading the water meter twice within a 2-week period. We actually only do that once, but we have a 90-day history, so we can clearly see that something has been fixed. And then on the actual form, we just changed it to say the form was coming to myself, the Director of Finance. So those are the changes we are proposing. And the only financial implications are obviously that we're writing off some water potentially. We're increasing the scope of the policy. Keep in mind, it is still just a one-time adjustment, one time per property per owner. So there could be financial implications there, but that would be it. And unless Greg wants to add anything, I think that covers what we're proposing.
Thank you, Amy. So I'll just read the recommended motion first, and then we can get into discussion about it. The recommended motion is that council approve the amendments to the water leak adjustment policy 23-05, retroactive to December 20th, 2023. Someone like to make that motion, please? Moved by Councillor Joseph, seconded by Deputy Mayor Gilroy. Questions or comments for Amy and or Greg, I guess, in this case? Seeing none. Amy, I just have one. As I read through the policy, do I read this right? So it requires the resident property owner to contact the municipality when they believe there's an issue and have it tested before they fix it to be able to qualify for this, to meet the standard here. Or what they discovered this morning, get a bill, it's a huge bill, they immediately realize what the problem is, they fix it before they have an opportunity to have the water test, the meter test, sorry.
Yeah,
Please.
back to your worship. They don't necessarily need to reach out to us first. We're usually pretty clear when there's been an issue because they'll go up. Typically, they will reach out to us and we'll have to walk them through what may be the problem and what they may want to look into. A lot of times it's a leaking toilet or a tap that's been left open. But no, they don't. We don't need to do a read. Typically, when they reach out to us, then we will do a read and see that there's a problem. But if we notice there's a problem, we do also reach out to them, even if it's not billing time yet. But that doesn't always happen, obviously. So.
Thank you very much. I think Deputy Mayor Gilroy had a question.
More of a comment. The problem with some of these things is that you have silent leaks, and especially like in rental properties, you got a toilet that just runs on or whatever, and nobody reports it, or the landlord or the owner doesn't know about it, and then you get a big bill, and you go, where'd this come from? When you start going through the building, this is when you discover you got all these little silent leaks going on and whatever. And I mean, hardly anybody ever goes to their basement and checks the leak detector on their water meter, unless they have some suspicion that something's going on. So if we catch it early on the first bill and then do this, then, you know, it makes sense to, you know, you're treating people fairly. So.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments for Amy in regards to this agenda item? Seeing none, I'll call for the question. All those in favor, raise your hand, please. Mark your mind at nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. Folks, that brings us to the end of our agenda. I'd ask for a motion to adjourn, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor Gilroy for adjournment. We are adjourned. Thank you, folks. Have a great day.